Peter Josie, well known to all St. Lucians. My way of looking at Peter is he's an experienced politician, a former Minister of Government, a former firebrand who in the 1970s was incredible, the kind of energy he had and what he intended to accomplish. But one admiration which I do have for Peter is that over the years, unlike some other politicians who want to continue on that path of opposition, he realized where he went wrong and was able to change his life and address the nation differently. And to me, when an individual can do that, it says a lot about the person. I make those comments because they're just my personal views about Peter, but I'm sure everybody in St. Lucia knows Peter Josie probably better than I do. That having been said, today I have a number of headings I want to revisit. I'm going to give St. Lucia the first 4 headings which we will deal with. Number 1, I want to talk about politics as a profession. Politics is a brutal profession, and although I was not in a position before to make such a statement, having stood close to my son in the last elections, I realized how filthy politics can be. But one thing which amazes me is that I feel that after an election campaign is over, we need to sit down and run the country. But the Labour Party has a modus operandi, which actually I heard Rick Wayne speak about last night on his show, is that they cannot accept a loss, and they seem to thrive on campaigning. And I would say the Labour Party is already in campaign mood since losing the last elections. I picked up an old newspaper, it was Star newspaper, sometime last year, an article written by a man called Tony Astafan. I guess I don't have to introduce Tony Astafan to St. Lucia. Everybody knows who Tony Astafan was and is. And in that article, he was having a discussion with Dr. Anthony, where the two of them got together and said that Alan Shastney could never win a seat in government. Well, they were a little far from the truth, because not only did he win a seat, he became the Prime Minister of this country. And I think that is the hardest pill for Dr. Anthony and his cohorts to swallow. But it's history. But one thing I want to say to St. Lucia and to Dr. Anthony, that Alan Shastney is not a walkover. Because many people who felt Alan was handed a gold spoon in life, let me say, that is not so. Because I raised my children when I had nothing, and they understand what tough times are. The people who know Michael Shastney today only know the Michael Shastney who has survived based on what he has done to put him where he is. I was never a Prime Minister of a country. I never derived any money from taxpayers' money. I worked for every cent I had. And as a matter of fact, when I came back to St. Lucia, I've said it before, I invested my money into St. Lucia, and the jobs I created were jobs from my sweat, not from other people's sweat. Meaning, a Prime Minister who comes into the country and we have to pay almost $1 billion a year in taxes, when I say we, the nation, and then he spends our money. Let me say one thing to those who have not employed people. until you have unless you have employed somebody, you don't know what it is to pay a salary. I have created thousands of jobs in my lifetime, so I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I think I'm authorized to speak from that vein as a result of what I've done. It takes guts to run a country, and the people who are attacking the present Prime Minister, I want them to know one thing. The Prime Minister has the, should I say, the good of the country at heart. What he wants to do is to try to put St. Lucia on a proper footing. You know, when I watched the last budget and I heard Dr. Anthony say that he would not support the budget, yeah. I mean, really? Really? An individual who disbursed almost $320 million in VAT money to unsustainable jobs and left this country where it is today, and you trying to criticize a new Prime Minister? No, Dr. Anthony. Go back and do some homework. Please, I beg you, go back and do some homework. Ask yourself some questions, and if there is any level of honesty in the reply you're going to give, we'll get the right answer. With that, I introduce my guest, Mr. Peter Josie.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, Peter, tell me something. I have some concerns of what is going on in St. Lucia today. First, based on the DSH project. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because St. Lucia has heard so much about the DSH project, that although they complain that the Prime Minister has not disclosed what he wants to do, I don't know how many more times that he's going to tell the nation that the race course is scheduled to be opened on December 10th this year, and that project has started. All other areas are proposals which have been put forward, which have to be analyzed. Just as a citizen of St. Lucia and a guy from the South, can you just highlight to me what is your view of what is going on today?
Thank you, Michael. And before I say this, let me say there are some pertinent points that St. Lucians need to observe. And I would like to say, as a preamble, that I was a radical and people called me all kinds of names. But part of my political agenda up to today has been to try to educate the people of St. Lucia. You use the word filthy to describe politics. I'm sorry, I would not use that word. It has become filthy because filthy men and women have invaded it, have used the innocence and ignorance, if I may say so brutally, to control the destiny of the country. And so that is why people today who were around when I was at my prime tell me, and I'm sure they will tell you, that when Peter Josie, George Odlum, and that Frances Mitchell and people like that were in politics, it was to get the country up, to educate people, to make them better, to take St. Lucia by the scruff of the neck, shake it up, and prepare it for a generation coming to enjoy and to continue building. Dr. Anthony, I have said before and I'll say it again, I'm fearless when it comes to that. I have to be certain, though, that he does not take me to court again, because that court case with the briefcase is still going on. And this year, May, is 20 years since I made the statement. Okay? It is clear to anybody when a leader of the opposition can stand up in Parliament and say that he will write to investors asking them not to invest in St. Lucia. What else do you expect from such a person? Only because Alan Shasley became Prime Minister, we heard about DSH. And this thing continues to trouble me. And I hope it continues to trouble St. Lucians as much as it is troubling my mind. That we knew nothing about DSH, and we know for a fact that DSH was in the hands of the former government for 15 months and over. Why? Why wasn't anything said or done about it? Why weren't the people of Viewfort themselves consulted? You know why? And that is why one of the things I like about politics, because I can make a judgment based on my experience and my knowledge of people and individuals. A snap election was called. For the first time in the history of St. Lucia, even in the bad old colonial days, Saturday was never a day when you had to go and get people to register, etc. Because you must have your constituents, especially if you're Assembly Adventist. How can you get strong supporters and Assembly Adventist people believe in their Saturday, even more than Catholic and other people believe in Sunday? You know? So that was mischievous and deliberate. A snap election. Why? Hoping to catch the opposition then, the UWP, and people like unawares, and hope to stroll in. If Kenny Anthony and the Labour Party had won this last election last June, you know something? He would have pushed down the DSH down our throats. And there would be no, how they call him, this guy in the
discussion.
There would be no discussion, but more than that, the people who are in the National Trust, and all of them, including those in the priesthood who are not now opening their mouths, all of them would have stayed quiet. And that is what I detest. And that is why I'm here today. That is why I'm here today, to talk to the people of St. Lucia, to open their eyes some more, and to show them, you know, the reality of the situation. That kind of hypocrisy.
Well, Peter, you know, you're quite correct in what you have just said. But, you know, another situation which concerns me and concerns the Prime Minister is the fact that places like Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, Martinique, these were what I call relief valves for St. Lucians. When things became very difficult, at least a couple hundred would try to escape and go to those areas to find additional work. Those doors are closed today. Closed, you want visas to go there, it's that much more difficult to get. So, based on all of that, any Prime Minister today has these added areas to address. Added areas in the sense that he must now find more jobs, because let us assume 2,000, 2,500 people could escape in that route. They can't escape anymore. And the pressure is going to build up in St. Lucia. I met with the former Director of Finance under the Kenny Anthony administration, Mr. Reginald Darius, last year, July, in London. And he told me in no uncertain terms that unless St. Lucia can get some foreign investment, it will be problems. On that score, we want to advise St. Lucians that have come to the end of the first segment of our program. We'll be right back. Hello St. Lucia, this is Open Mike, and we're now back to the second segment of our program. When we left off, we were addressing the individuals who seem to be interfering into the running of this country. You know, we most recently witnessed a letter, or should I say a press release, from His Grace the Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Church in St. Lucia, which I must say was most unbecoming, to put it mildly. But that having been said, St. Lucia, we also, or should I say, there seems to be sufficient evidence to show that one Kevin Murray, a white American in the south of the island, who was rejoicing recently when he thought they had a good day of demonstrations
against DSH.
Against the DSH, apparently drafted that letter for the Archbishop, but more importantly, in consultation with the hierarchy of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Now, let me be very careful. This is what I understand. But that investigation will be carried out and the truth will come to light. But if that is correct, I want to say to Father Kevin Murray, thank you for coming to St. Lucia. But since you are so concerned about the citizens of the South, who are 99% black, I would suggest that you educate yourself. If you've educated yourself enough now, you should go back to America and take care of your own country, where the slogan is Black Lives Matter. Father Murray, let me say to you that some time ago, Sir John Compton passed legislation called the David England Act for interference into this country. You are a foreign national. You were brought here to represent the church. Stick to your last, Father Murray, because those demonstrations you are participating in will do you no good, because the day of reckoning, if you are a priest and you're supposed to be telling the truth, that's not what you came to St. Lucia for. And be careful, because the very politicians who are using you will turn against you. Peter, you made a point a while ago about your past in the politics.
Yeah.
Can you just...
And one of the things I said, and which I still try to do whenever the opportunity arises, is to try to explain things to St. Lucia, not in a biased way, but in an objective way as much as I can. I remember in the early 60s when Bishop Gachet, I used to live at Marshall then, was trying to build a Marshall church. He used to ask every Sunday for a silver collection. In other words, don't put any pennies and halfpennies and things. So put, 10 cents or 25 cents or whatever. And I remember Bishop Gachet was always encouraging St. Lucians to become priests. The thing about it is that if a priest, a St. Lucian priest, criticizes something objectively he feels, I think it will be taken in good stride, whether he's a priest of the Anglican faith or whatever. I think part of the objection I have personally, and I suspect, I listened to a talk last night with Rick, is for foreigners to come and tell us what they think we ought to do. We have had 300 years of colonialism. I'm sorry to say, we don't want any white man, whether it's England or America or wherever, whether it's a priest or prime minister or wherever, to come and tell us how to run ourselves anymore. Those days are over. And I feel personally hurt and insulted as a St. Lucian and as a Beaufortian to have Kevin Murray from Kansas or wherever the Redemptionist priests are from, coming and not only telling the congregation what to do, but demonstrating and in collusion with politicians. The people exercised free democratic choice last June, and this has to be respected whether you're a priest or doctor or whatever. So I take strong objections to that behavior. And I also believe the Archbishop Rivers is being used. I was very annoyed with Archbishop Rivers over Father Quinlan in Grosile. I still feel that he did not investigate sufficiently what had happened. they just threw Father Quinlan out of the island as if he had committed some, murderous crime. I don't think Jesus Christ would have acted that way. As a matter of fact, I'm one of those persons who believe strongly that if Jesus Christ were to come to St. Lucia today, he would kick out half of those priests and preachers that are calling in his name. He would do something. He would whip them, overturn their tables in the same way he did just before his crucifixion in Jerusalem. I have no doubt about that in my mind at all. I also want to say, St. Lucians, people of St. Lucia, God has given each of us a talent. Some of us he gave more than others. We cannot allow people from anywhere else to come and tell us how to use our talents. And if we are not careful, you all read the Bible more than me, so I can't quote chapter and verse. The talent, if it's one talent we have to use it. Don't go and bury it. And when the person who gave us the talent, the manager and owner of the estate comes back, you say, oh, you are afraid because he's such a hard man. No. The talents that we have to use to develop our country. And as I say that, I go back to something Mr. Chasney said, Michael Chasney just said. Dr. Anthony has used the talents, $320 million collected from that badly. That is not how it should be used. And I heard the other day people talking in the opposition about the country is not a business. It's not a business. If you don't run it as a business, how will you make money to pay the poor people and to help the nice, those without health care, etc., etc.? Where will you get the money from? From Michael Chasney? From Peter Josie's taxes? That's not how you run it. You run it not necessarily to make a profit like a business, but you don't fritter money away when you're in government. As a Minister of Finance, you don't give away what you have not earned. And you do not earn it by taxing people. And that is what these guys refuse to understand. They don't want Alan Chasney to tax tourism. They don't want him to tax the airport. Whom will you tax? Only the poor people of St. Lucia?
But more importantly, Peter, they don't want him to do the DSH project.
Either.
Now, let me say something to you. Big America, with all its natural resources, its human resources, and what have you, what has Mr. Trump just done? Reduced the tax rate from 30% to 15% to get more business into the country and to bring back all the money that's outside to the country. That's America, where Father Murray is from. He's fighting us on the DSH project, okay? And on the other hand, his own country is fighting to get investment into their country.
But Michael,
where are we to go?
Michael, I'll tell you something. I say so with passion, but I'm not against foreigners coming to St. Lucia. You know what I'm against? When they feel that we are soft, we are nice people, we are kind people, so they must take advantage of us.
You know what it is? Mistaking kindness for weakness.
I believe so, because even a St. Lucian who comes and put himself wrong, I think we have to run him out. Doesn't matter. The same way we run out the government, any St. Lucian who falls short and you come in and be a front for a foreigner or you're taking advantage of people, we have to run that person out. You understand?
Now, Peter, we have discussed a bit of the DSH and a bit of the clergy. I now want to address the National Trust. You know, that's another situation. As I said earlier on, I have absolutely nothing wrong with CARICOM individuals taking positions in St. Lucia. As you said earlier on, yeah, these are CARICOM brothers. There are many St. Lucians all over the world, okay? Right. So, but once you come here and you can do your job properly, I have not a problem with that. Now, take a place like the National Trust. I must say that I don't know too much about the National Trust until recently. I did a lot of reading up on the National Trust, and I'm learning so many things that concern me. For instance, I was with some people recently, and I was told that they had not presented the government an updated financial accounts. Now, I don't know. I have to check on that. But in the last 25 to 30 years, the government has put in $21 million of its meager resources into the National Trust.
Taxpayers' money.
Taxpayers' money. Now, in addition to that, the National Trust has received many valuable assets which can produce money. The very Pigeon Island itself, the Jazz Festival alone pays over $100 and something thousand a year. There are so many other agencies in dire need of assistance. Why do we have to continue to pour money into the National Trust? Shouldn't they sit down with the Prime Minister and say, okay, Prime Minister, these are our expenses, and that's what we need. And if they really had St. Lucia at heart, they would then come to the government and say, look, you know, there are other more deserving agencies. Can we get a couple years off so that you can invest the money elsewhere? But instead of that, you are demanding more money from the government. And when you look at the National Trust, as I said, I didn't know much about it. It has some hardcore labor supporters there, okay, who are pulling all kind of strings, using all kind of Mickey Mouse ways to attack the government. What the Prime Minister is trying to do is to bring in as much foreign investment as possible to the country. You know, as I said before, the National Trust has 1,800 members. I'm quite sure that 90% of them don't even attend meetings. They know nothing. They did not even know about the boat that was given. And last night on the Rick Wayne show, I think it was Rick Wayne show, somebody called in, a lady, and made a very valuable contribution. She said, if the boat costs 120,000 US dollars, all they had to do was to send the boat down to the Coast Guard station in Vieux-Fort, let them take care of it, and you take a car and go down, go to the island. But no, they were told it's too far to run the boat from Castries to Vieux-Fort. It only shows the level of thinking of those people. It's not their money. You cannot continue to pour money into a big black hole. And I say to the trust, you know, if they listen to the chairman of the DCA, what the people have done is ask for permission in principle. That proposal was sent to the National Trust. Instead of them coming back to DCA and giving their comments, they go in the media. So they're politicizing the whole situation. And as soon as you start doing that, there's something radically wrong. But you know, sometimes it takes a while for St. Lucians to get to the bottom of the story, but they will get to the bottom of the story, and the truth will come out. Peter, when you left off, you were giving some story on something else, but we've just come to the end of the second segment of our program. I'll be right back. St. Lucia, this is Open Mic, and I'm now back to the third segment of our program. And when I left off, I was talking about the ongoing disturbance or misunderstanding with the trust. And Peter wanted to make a contribution.
My contribution, again, I come back to the point that I made. Mr. Silence, playing his cards very close to his chest as Prime Minister. Somebody, when he came 20 years ago, who promised open government. Nobody knew about any dolphin park until Alan Shastney, I don't know why I'm calling you Alan Michael, until Alan Shastney became Prime Minister and the UWP was in government. And the dolphin park idea was not new, it was there before. And my understanding is that the former government had also supported the establishment of a dolphin park. But you know what I took objections to as a St. Lucian, Michael? It is not our style.
Yeah.
We, the people of St. Lucia, would never jeer and boo at people who came to present to us what the idea of a dolphin park is as far as they're concerned, the investors. St. Lucians would never do that. And Peter Josie and the worst of the Labour Party politicians in my time, I repeat, in my time, 40 years ago, would never have behaved that way. Never. Why should the National Trust do that? You know why? Because their backs are arched They're obviously now in a fight together with the opposition against the Prime Minister and the government. And I'll tell you something, they will have the fight on their hands. I was not here last elections. And people think that when you get to my age, you have lost your convictions and your fire. You don't. All you need to do is to get a right thing to motivate you. And I want to say to you, and to ask you to ask your son Alan and the UWPs to have 1 or 2 meetings on the boulevard. And I want to speak. I was not here last elections. I want to speak in public, to say what I have to say. I don't like the television and the radio too much.
You'll be down at the meeting. I think they're having a meeting in the Viewfort on May the 17th.
I want to be there. You understand what I'm saying? Because I would use both English and Creole fluently, and I do so better than most St. Lucians, even though I say so myself. And that is what troubles me with the trust and the whole dolphin thing, all of a sudden. And it's because Alan Shastney is explaining every weekend after cabinet, before cabinet. That never happened before. Dr. Anthony, up to now, impacts he has not explained. And I'll tell you something, sometimes it comes to my mind. I want to share this with you and your viewers. Sometimes it occurs to me, and that's my political mind working now, that all that thing about Dolphin Park and DSH, that's a smoke screen. Because the Labour Party in opposition and its leaders, not only one, all of them, they do not want the impacts thing to go forward. They do not want Grindberg to go forward. You know, who knows the details of Grindberg? How did it come about? What role did Earl Huntley play? How can Earl Huntley all of a sudden be the custodian of archives of national importance that are kept at his home?
But you know,
I have nothing against Earl. I like Earl.
Yeah.
But how did that happen without the consent of a senior minister of government? How did it happen? How did we come to that, Michael? You answer me.
let me say something to you that I observe too. We all have our faults and we have our strong points. But Dr. Anthony appears to have the ability, and I say so in no uncertainty, the ability to get people to shut their mouth and do what he wants, okay? I mean, really and truly, when you look at what is going on today in St. Lucia, it is frightening because there are certain positions that a top position, people in top posts in St. Lucia, who knew what was happening in the Dr. Kenny
Of course, they had to know.
and did nothing about it, okay? Let me say something to you. You talk about Grindberg, okay? Other than the fact that the Governor General gave Stephenson King a letter and said she knows nothing about it, that should have come out in the open from day one. Because you're talking of, they tell me, 80 million acres of land.
Yeah.
Now, you have
Of seabed.
You talk, let's go back to my good friend in Viewfort, the priest,
Yeah.
Dr.
Kevin Murray.
Okay. He talks about taking away the land from people. What about our fishermen who go out and produce all that? That we have not got real access to our seabed, okay? And we have spent a couple $1 million in legal fees, and it is still ongoing.
Exactly.
And you refuse to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So the message you're sending there, you are supporting one side against another. Alan Shastney is now the Prime Minister of this country. His party won the elections, and he should be allowed to govern. But instead of that, as Rick Wayne said last night, it's a constant hindrance, and people from St. Lucia have to wake up and smell the coffee and understand that if the Prime Minister is not allowed to do his job, the time he's going to waste next week to have a political meeting, we have spent enough time on politics. We don't need to spend any more time. But it shows that they do not care. Their whole idea is block and block and block. You know, the last elections that John Compton won, and he passed away, you remember what they did to Ezekiel, Esther, they had them stopped by police for petty accidents, for nonsense, you know. That is just antagonism.
But
Why
when
are you
Compton
doing
lost in 97, they actually went in the boulevard where he used to park next to his law office and tried to stop him from parking in the boulevard. Do you remember that?
I remember.
20 years ago.
And tell you something, Peter, and I never saw anybody write about it. I noticed something online recently where a person wrote and said that Alan Shaston is the most vindictive prime minister.
Yeah.
Vindictive? Do you know what vindictiveness is? Just go back a couple years and you'll find what.
But you know, it was a campaign in the budget address, you know. It started from the leader of the opposition. That is a word they planned.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, petty psychology.
Yeah.
So each of them in the Labour Party opposition at this budget debate, each one of them repeated the word vindictive. That's the word they wanted to stick in the people's minds, that the Prime Minister is vindictive. You talk about vindictiveness, they say it takes one to know another.
Yeah.
The only way they could know that is because they knew what happened.
Yeah.
And Rick said something, I think it was Rick who put it out, I found difficult to believe. In all of my years in politics, and even before I became active, following George Charles and Murray and Mallet and Francois, Hunter Francois and these boys, and Compton, I've never heard of a prime minister or premier or chief minister getting from his cabinet permission from all of the other blokes sitting around that cabinet table, give me permission to negotiate and do everything on your behalf. That is almost unconstitutional and illegal, I would imagine. We are supposed to have equal responsibility. The people from the various constituencies have reposed power in us to represent them in parliament and in government. In cabinet, you all are all equal, except that the one you chose as leader, you gave him a little more leeway. But you don't give him leeway to go out and speak on your behalf without reporting to you or without you being there. And I remember something. In the British system of politics, the three most important persons are the Prime Minister, 1, the Attorney General, 2, and his Minister of Foreign Affairs. When you are going out as Prime Minister, you should always have some one of these people or permanent secretary or your personal secretary to take notes, just like Alan Shaston is doing. You understand? In the past, one minister takes off on his own. Nobody knows what's going on because there's no report. And that is the hole we find ourselves in today that we are trying to crawl away from. And let me say one more thing quickly before I forget. You talk about National Trust and they complain about money. Alan Shaston, Prime Minister Shaston, did not give them. That money has already been given to other people. I'm not going to quote any names. I got from reliable sources that that money was given to other social organizations that I shall not name here. So even though he were to find half the money for them, I would advise him not to give. You know why? Because they would insult him by not taking it because they have already decided they're fighting him. I would try to institute a national development foundation similar to Soufre. I thought that's what you were going to do when you had Clem Bob last week. I would ask Clem to have a meeting with Spider and the Prime Minister and prominent citizens in the northern part of the island around Grosile. Let us start a foundation in the Grosile area. Give the foundation to take care of Pigeon Island and to develop Grosile constituency. That is what I would do. And I would do the same thing in Vieux-Fort, same thing in Dennery, and Surrey and Canaries, and all around the island. Have a development foundation, and the government would help them get on their feet, and they would take care of business. And you see the National Trust?
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
But you see...
Bye-bye, National Trust.
Yeah. But you see, you have the NCA, which does the same
the
thing.
NCA would take over as far as I'm concerned.
You
You see, that's my problem, Michael. I don't put words in my, water in my mouth when I come to speak. That's who I am. And thank God, I hope I'll die that way. Never being afraid in my country. I don't speak when I'm in America, I can't go to Barbados and talk politics in Barbados.
Right.
In St. Lucia? No. This is my home.
Yeah.
I will not be quiet in my home.
On another score, with the Archbishop Rivers, something just came to my mind. You remember, what year was it that Sarah Flood Bowburn was actually dismissed as a minister when she refused to support an abortion bill? What year was that?
That
Well, that must
the
have been
first
the
term,
80s,
you know,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
first term, no.
Yeah. Well,
Dr. Anthony got in with the Labour
1997.
Party in 1997. That
Yeah.
must have happened 2 years after that, two and a
Okay.
half years.
Yeah. Now, you know, I never heard a word.
Not a word, not a word, not a word.
Yeah, right? Now, and that is something that affects the church directly.
Last night, Rick Wayne reminded us when they were building this Le Paradis
Yes.
at Pralin,
Yeah.
all the snakes that were there, they felt sorry for the snakes. Remember?
Yes.
But you know the amount of snakes that died? The snakes started going and look for water all the way in Denry village, you know.
Is that right?
Yes, the snakes started approaching because snakes drink water at night, so they must get to the river, and they got closer and closer to Denry. They didn't feel sorry for, I'm not talking about the National Trust,
Yeah.
but they feel for the little snakes and lizard at Mariah Island. And as I said Mariah, I remember something. I was speaking to a young person yesterday after I called Timothy, because I refer to the island as Mariah. Last night I was very pleased to hear a fellow, I suspect he's from the south. I said, boy, it depends on what school, what part of the island you went to learn those words. St. Lucia say Maria. I know it as Mariah. That some people say tomatoes, others say tomatoes.
Yeah.
Potatoes, potatoes. So it's the linguistic history from which you arose. I know them as Mariah. These are my islands. I'm a Viewfortian before all of them. You understand what I'm saying? You were sorry, not sorry for the big snakes that we had to protect, especially what we call the tête chien,
Yeah.
which doesn't kill you, but if you step on it, it will. And these things are good to clear the land of a lot of things that you don't do, right? So all of a sudden, you want to protect the little insignificant things that you can't even eat. At least the Chinese can teach us how to kill the snakes if we really get hungry. And prepare the snakes and eat. You know, Chinese are very good at preparing snakes to eat.
Right.
So the big snakes, leave them, because one day we might have to eat them to survive. Although Rick was saying last night, we eat everything in our, which is true. Man must eat to survive. And if it is snakes we have to eat, we'll eat the snakes. But the little snakes and the little things at Mariah Island, what can you do with that? You know what I suggest? Take all of them, put in a convenient place, either in St. Lucia or in some other trust in another country that would have them, and let us be happy developing that part of St. Lucia for a change. For a change. Let's develop Viewfort.
Yeah. You know, I went down, I met the boy who speaks on the HTS, Février, yeah. What's his name? Yeah. Anyway, he went down to...
Owns Février. He owns it, yes.
No, not
that one.
No, not that one. Miguel.
Oh, Miguel, the shortish guy. Okay.
He was down at the Viewfort on Sunday, and he went, took a boat and went
to Mariah. Yeah.
So what you saw, well, you didn't see anything. St. Lucia,
and he's a very keen reporter. Eh? He's a nice fella. Yeah.
St. Lucia, this is the open mic, and we've now come to the end of the third segment of our program. We'll be right back. St. Lucia, this is the open mic, and we're now back to the fourth and final segment of our program. And on this segment, we would like to touch on three topics. We want to touch a little bit on the tourism, on the agriculture and the banana industry, the performance of Guy Joseph so far, and of course the grocery highway. Peter, you wanted to mention something about the Minister for Tourism?
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think there's no doubt in anybody's mind that Guy Joseph was excellent in his presentation. But Dominic Fede was not far behind him. And it's clear that Dominic Fede understands tourism. People say he worked in Sanders and then worked in... Well, good for him.
Yeah.
And that's precisely why he's doing so well
in the industry
and articulating his stance. I was very disturbed by people trying to ridicule him because of size. Michael, when you reach that level of parliament, and you bring that kind of ridicule to Parliament,
Yeah.
what is it saying about yourself as an
That
individual?
was very most unbecoming.
You know, the guy does not know what he's talking about. Take it and tear his argument up to bits.
Yeah.
And you provide the alternative. Let people see that you are the one with the plan and you are now
Well,
ready.
it seems as though that the Labour Party do have a problem with size, because evidently that's why they sidelined Pep. You know? Yeah.
Somebody mentioned, I
Yeah.
think Guy Joseph
Guy
mentioned.
that, you know. Yeah.
But Guy Joseph is a special person,
Oh, definitely.
you know, and I'll tell you something. I am not a born again anything, and I don't carry my Christian Catholic belief on my sleeves, right? As a matter of fact, I'm one of the great critics of my church.
Right.
And that is why I took objections to Archbishop Rivers. And you know, one of the things I dislike the most in what it is alleged that the Archbishop wrote, when he quoted Pope Francis.
Yeah.
I think Pope Francis is a decent man.
Yeah.
Given an opportunity, he will change the church. But guess what? We will not see a black pope in our lifetime. So the Catholic Church is still racist. We will not see a woman ordained as priest and become bishop because it is anti-women. So we're not going back there. Let's keep going forward.
Right.
So Guy Joseph was excellent, and I want to encourage him, and also the Minister of Tourism. These guys obviously know their work.
Yeah.
Guy Joseph, wanted 10 million to help in developing housing. He only got 3.5. It means that things are bad. So if they had given the National Trust 700,000, where would it come from?
Yeah.
Where would it come from? Stevenson King is doing a good job. I want to say to him, I haven't seen Stephen in a long time. But there's a little road inside of me between Habitat Terrace Hotel, the skit lady, Cheryl,
Yes.
owns a little hotel there. When you turn in there, going around inside by where Nicholas lives, I'm
Yes.
sure Nicholas has
Yes.
mentioned that. That is extremely bad, Michael. That thing, you can't even pothole it. You have to repulverize the whole thing.
Well, I'm sure he probably will listen to the
So
program.
I really would want that to be done. Plus, of course, our Bonter Road too,
Yeah.
right? But the rainy season is going to be coming on us. In John Compton's time, he used to clear the Castries River. He used to clear all the little drains that you... And that is something we have to keep continuing to do. And I'm sure Stevenson King, who has been years with John Compton, I'm glad that's the ministry he has, because he would know, you know, the Castries, the drainage, the thing and what to do.
I think he has that under control, because
I think so.
heard him talking about it recently, also the Rosette Highway. But, you know, they didn't have the funding. They were just passed their bills, and it had to be discussed next week. So I'd probably take another month for all the funding to come.
Among the ministers, Steve gave a working man's technical kind of account, and he did very well. Ezekiel was very good in agriculture.
Yeah. Well, talking about agriculture, that's another area. We had a couple meetings with the French again.
Right.
The French want so many, but you know, it's a very interesting, Peter. You're an agriculturist, and what has happened? Martinique produces about 200,000 tons a year, and they get another 100,000 from Guadeloupe, 300,000, and another 50,000 from the Dominican Republic.
Right.
But it's still insufficient, because what Martinique has done now, we had a meeting here with the ministers and Mr. Didicus Jules and so forth from the OECS, and imagine that the 300,000 tons that they get now, they bring it to a special place in France, and they cut it up one time in like 4 bananas in a package, and they sell that, and they get 20% more than they were getting before.
Okay.
And as a result, they want at least 150 to 200,000 tons a year of regular bananas. And as a matter of fact, the minister from St. Vincent came over, and he's quite interested in working with the French, and they're sending technical assistance to us. So I think all going well. Keep our fingers crossed that the weather is not unfair to us this hurricane season, and all going well. I would say by September next year, we could be producing 30,000 tons of bananas a year.
I hope if the Prime Minister and his Minister of Agriculture and other ministers decide, listen, the Windfresh has done its time, and it's time for us to have a St. Lucian outfit. If St. Vincent and Dominica want to join us, fine.
Yeah.
But we have to develop that relationship with Martinique.
Yeah.
We already have it in St. Lucia. It's not something new.
Correct.
As you said earlier, as a matter of fact, there's been more movement between Martinique and St. Lucia than even between St. Lucia and Barbados.
Correct. Yeah.
In the old days especially.
Yeah.
You know, and now with the ferry express,
Yes. The Express is ill. Yeah.
there's ill, you know.
Yeah.
But I compliment the Minister of Agriculture. At one time he gave a joke. I was following him very closely. And he complimented the workers in the Ministry of Agriculture. And at the end of it, he told the opposition, who was the former minister, you can take some credit too.
Yeah.
A Labour Party person could never do that, Michael. They can never.
Yeah.
The Labour Party politicians, and they have poisoned the minds of their supporters. They can never see anything to praise in anybody. You know,
You see,
never. I tell them it's
There's a
God
reason
that-
for that, you know, Peter.
I'm sure there is.
There's a reason.
I'm
You
sure
see,
there is.
The guys cannot operate under any form of independence. Every time they talk, they have to look at Dr. Anthony to see
Yeah.
if he can get the nod. They are terrified to say anything that upsets the guy. And you know, you cannot run a country like that because you have all these ministries. Ministers have their own strong points, you know. You have
Yeah.
a minister of agriculture, a minister of education, and these people, they are trained to do that. That's their forte. So you have to let people coexist, yeah, and not keep pushing them down. I mean, every one of those labor people operate out of fear.
You know, in the old days, there used to be the thing about one man and his dog. And you do not want to refer to parliamentarians as dog, but sometimes you get the impression that he treats them as if it's one man and his servants.
Yeah.
Little boys,
Yeah.
intimidated them. But you know something? I see through this guy as if it's through glass, through Dr. Anthony. I look at him and see through him like it's glass. And I'm sure he hates my guts to the point where he could kill me. This guy is such a fake, Michael. You wouldn't believe, you know.
Yeah.
These days, you know what he's doing? He's taken to hiding. He's hiding his eyes because the eye is a reflection of the soul. Through a person's eyes, you can know what their heart is saying if you know how to look at them through their eyes.
Yeah.
These days, everywhere you see him, he's hiding his eyes. From Derek Walcott's funeral, hiding. You know, he's ashamed of himself and ashamed that people will see the wickedness behind the eyes. This guy is not good. That is a fake.
Well-
Fake of a high order. I don't know how people like you allow that to happen to St. Lucia.
Well, we can only do so much, you know. I mean, the guy was the prime minister of the country. He had his opportunity, yeah.
For 20 years, he
Yeah,
almost...
20 years, 15
Look
years.
at the
of
state
time.
of Beaufort.
Yeah. You know, I mean, when I go down to the, for instance, the Beaufort fisheries. It's a mess. All where Cloud's Nest was, falling on the building. You know something, Peter? It's now at least 12 to 13 years I've been writing about it. In fact, I'm going to ask Junior whether when we are running this program, whether he would highlight that part, picture I took in Choiseul, where the whole fisheries pier is smelling. The water is dirty. It's totally...
But look at Iwanura Airport at Beaufort,
it's
the
an
Beaufort
environmental-
River, after 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, twice it has gone over the airport. Which is, I mean, look at the cost to Virgin, a couple $1 million when that plane got damaged, you know? And you spoke about it, about redirecting it.
But I'm always talking about the Beaufort River and how that is the key to developing Beaufort and the airport. You cannot have an airport every time it rains heavily. The river overflows its banks. One night, I was traveling on Biwi. That's a long time ago. I'm coming to St. Lucia. A guy I knew quite well from Marsha at the time, not a political person, had a 5-year-old daughter and said to me, boy, Peter, that child was supposed to go down with her mother, but the mother can't travel, blah, 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 blah. Her grandmother is going to come and collect her. Do me a favor, take that child down with you. I said, that's not a problem. The child was put in my care. Michael, when we came to land at Beaufort, too much water on the airport, we can't land. We bypassed St. Lucia, Iwanura, and went to Trinidad. Imagine my embarrassment.
What year was that?
I was a minister at the time. That must have been in the 70s, late 70s.
And we're now in 2017.
Late 70s. So that child must be a big woman, as if she remembers. I went and they put us, Biwi put us up at the Hilton. Not the Hilton, sorry. more to town on the right, Western Main Road, there was a hotel there.
Yeah.
And luckily, you know, I always speak well with people. As a politician, you should be able to do that anyway. So I approached a lady and I explained to her my predicament. She said, don't worry, we'll take care of her for you. Took the child, combed her, did what they had to do, and things, so put her to. I said, but tomorrow morning we are leaving very early because I think 6 o'clock they said we have to be back at the airport. She said, no, it's okay, Mr. Josie, we'll take her. I think she was in management, minor management. Yeah? Took her out, they woke her up, coffee and everything was prepared, they prepared sandwich for and things so. And the following morning, we learned that thing. But the mother, the grandmother and all of them knew the news. Because somehow God had spared Hiwanora Airport the full brunt of the river. So they were able to clean it up. And
right, quickly.
Yeah, so the following morning by 8 o'clock when we landed, you know. But you see the embarrassment.
Yeah. And after all, well, St. Lucia, this is Open Mic, and we have now come to the fourth and final segment of our program, and we only hope that we're able, as usual, to produce some information to the nation that has been unknown to you all, and we can look forward to another show next week. And this is Open Mic saying good night.